business data and analytics to build your sports organization. Jessica Gelman is the President and Chief Executive Officer of Kraft Analytics Group, and prior to becoming CEO, she served as the Vice President of Customer Marketing and Strategy. And if you're thinking, Kraft Analytics Group, that's right, New England Patriots, New England Revolution, and Gillette Stadium. People in the back, watch out, Brian's coming your way to have you sit down. You've been warned. So when she was President of Customer Marketing and Strategy, her responsibilities included overseeing analytics for the Revolution and the Patriots, where her strategic findings played an essential role in the customer marketing functions, ticketing, and local and international business development for Kraft sports properties. Marion Turk is the Chief Operating Officer of the National Football League. In this role, she oversees all facets of the operation, including marketing, technology, NFL Films, NFL Network, and NFL digital content and operations. She also oversees the corporate functions, including human resources, public relations, and government relations. And prior to her promotion to COO, she was the president of the NFL Network, and she was also formerly president of Bell Media. Both are battling through a cold.
So mostly me.
Mostly her.
Yeah.
Okay. So everyone stay quiet. Thank you.
All right. So I'm going to kick us off with a little bit of an overview of what's happening in the sports analytics landscape for a couple reasons. One, because with CAGR, which is the short for Kraft Analytics Group, it's a play on a financial term. Hopefully all of you students know that. We work with 4 of the 5 major professional sports leagues, and then we work with a bunch of the blue chip leaders in the sports space, like Ticketmaster, as an example. And then secondarily, I also co-founded and chair the MIT Sloan Sports Analytics Conference. Has anyone been to that? All right. Brian and Maryann both have been great speakers. And also, I will say selfishly, I basically asked for Maryann to be on this with me. And obviously, Pride of Canada is now the most senior woman in sports, leading arguably the most powerful sports league in the world. So, Canada's own. So, and the other thing that's amazing when we first got to know each other is this broader perspective of where the sports industry is relative to other industries with the acceptance of analytics. And so I'll just say from my perspective, we're in the very early days. The big challenges with analytics and sports is first and foremost getting access to the data. So in hockey, which is unfortunately one of the furthest behind, both on predominantly on the team side, Kyle Dubas, as you know, is the general manager of the Maple Leafs. He actually came and spoke at Sloan 5 or 6 years ago, and now there's been some additional movement in the hockey space, but it's one of the more challenging sports for us to have people come and speak on at Sloan. I think what Stat Athletes is doing is fantastic. Obviously, Arizona Coyotes and what they're doing is phenomenal. But getting that access to data, and I'm going to speak specifically on the business side, is very challenging. And by that I mean wanting to get the information out of the ticketing systems. Some of the ticketing organizations are open with it, like Ticketmaster. Some make it more challenging. Then we heard about consumer products on the last panel, very challenging to get that information. You heard about what's happening in venue. Some information is shared and some is not. The media information, especially the over-the-top content, OTT as it's called, also not readily shared at a customer perspective. So that access to customer data is slowing down the availability and ability on the business side to move the business forward. Second, the data that is available is often misleading. So part of our role is to create data. And so I'll give you the example of some stuff that we've done during my days with Kraft Sports and Entertainment. In particular, a customer service call that you might receive, not all customer service calls are the same. So a great customer service call is someone calling because they want to log into their account. That's a good call. Someone calling because they had a bad experience, that's a bad call. You want to code those differently, and when you're doing any kind of analytic modeling, make sure that you understand the differences. The next is around data management, which we will talk a lot about today, in part because of a lot of the work that we're doing with the NFL. But that is integrating all of this data, not only on the customer side, but on the business side, to give you a single view of your customer and your business operations. And then the last is what we would call the communication and sharing of that information. So that's data visualizations. That's actually doing not just descriptive analytics of what you see and what has happened in the past, but predictive analytics to try and move the business forward. And then the prescriptive side is how are we going to make changes from that? So that's just a general overview. I think if I'm looking at the sports industry in general, we're kind of in the axis stages of it. But I think with Maryann in particular, having been a data scientist in school, we kind of wanted to start out, especially since there's so many students in the room, with a little bit of background of how we got here and kind of what we're doing today. So.
Yeah, I mean, I was fortunate enough to be here last night when Commissioner Bettman was recognized and Deputy Commissioner was recognized as well. And a question from the audience was, so kind of how do you get your job, right? And I think that if you're the young students in the group and just young post students in the group, it's really important to understand how you can distinguish yourself and not to box yourself into this running lane of only sports, all sports. You just sat up here with 5 heavy-hitting people who happen to be working in sports now, but probably have worked in other industries in their life. For me, I started as an engineer actually, but I did a postgraduate work in applied mathematical engineering, and it was particularly focused on developing statistical models to predict certain things in engineering. And so I kind of didn't like it. It was boring. And so I did my MBA and ended up working at Bell and sitting on the board of MLSE and getting into the sports side, running Bell Media, and then the NFL recruited me away. So fast forward, now I know that data are really important in what we do, and Jessica talked about the consumer side, and I can talk about it a little bit too, but also in how you develop your product. And we think about our game is our product, and we have been doing a lot of different things. I think it was the commissioner who was talking about it earlier. We actually have sensors on our players in different parts, on different parts of their equipment. We have sensors all over the field. We know, and if you watch the broadcast now, you see the analysts are talking about guys running so fast, or this is the fastest run this running back has had. But what's really interesting for me is not just the linear, like, here's the data and report it. It's, okay, if you look at the offensive lineup and the defensive lineup, and you know where these guys are, you know who they are, you know you can predict how they're going to play. We're actually working with a partner that I can't announce yet, but it'll be fun when we do, to start to predict with the lineup and who's in what position. This will be between a 3 and a 5 yard rush. This will be between a 7 and an 8 yard rush. This is going to go to there's going to be a short pass to the tight end. Like, these are the kinds of things that we're starting to be able to predict with the data that we're gathering. So for sure, it can help with coaching, but there's this other thing that has, hit us over the head in the last couple of years, and that's sports betting, which is another part of product. And whether you like it or you don't like it, the younger generations of fans are going to be engaged with it. And we have to figure out how to do it with protecting the integrity of our games entirely. All the professional leagues have to do that. But developing these data-driven, data sort of populated products that engage this next generation of fans while you're doing it. So that's a little bit on the game. And then related to that, we also spend a lot of time with data in player health and safety. So we started to strain gauge various parts of the equipment. So we put strain gauges, which are little devices that measure force, in the mouth guards. We're piloting it with a team. And we're also piloting strain gauges in the bottom surface of the cleat. And so they step onto a little pad before they step on the field. And these are the kinds of things. So with the mouth guard, we have like hundreds of thousands of data points on the forces being felt there, so that we can try now to correlate various plays with how much force was felt in the mouth guard, which you can approximate for how much force is generally in the upper body area. And it helps to provide a little bit of quantitative backup to diagnosing upper body injuries and concussions in particular. On the lower extremity injuries, which are not to be ignored in our work. They're the most lost time injuries for football players. And so we have come to realize now through data, and we are thinking we might want to partner with soccer teams and others, because there's a lot of data that we get, and it points to the interface between the field and that cleat. So the structure of the cleat undercarriage, and we're working with Nike on this, and what the turf is. And we're doing a lot of work. I think about 2/3 of the fields that we have now are grass, and then the other third are artificial turf, and understanding what's the best sort of interaction and the best combination of cleats and turf to lower the probability of injuries. So these are, it's not rocket science, and you're not going to predict the world, but these are things that are making the game way better, because when you're superstars, we all know, we saw last year, when you're superstars are on the rink, or on the court, or on the field, your fans are watching and they're engaging. And we use data to continue to do that, even through rule changes. We use data. You saw last season, we really got at, sort of helmet-to-helmet contact. We got at roughing the passer, and, separate and apart from the memes of, defensive ends picking up quarterbacks and putting them on mattresses, as saying the only way that they could now rush the pass. It really, the quarterbacks were standing up. Franchise quarterbacks were standing up. And we got over all the sniveling and the whining, and we had more offensive football than we have in a long, long time. And you know what? Fans kind of loved it. And this year we have, I can't remember the number exactly, but 12 or 13 quarterbacks under the age of 25. We're absolutely shooting the lights out. And the defenses are getting stronger. What do the Patriots do this year? They got one of the best defenses in the league, because Belichick knows that's where he's got to go. Because it's harder now with these guys showing up, and different plays for different guys, and Lamar Jackson and people like that who are changing the game at 24 years old. And data is underpinning all of that, and we cycle every year. In fact, every Monday, we do a lot of work on the analytics of the game. Let me talk. We're going to talk about revenue later in terms of ticketing, right? We'll talk about that.
All I wanted to add in there is that from my perspective, as someone who's been really trying to push analytics and data as a major driver of the industry for 17 plus years now, to have someone who is, at the most senior level, at the most prominent league, who not only understands it, but the applications of it is incredible. And I think, I'm guessing you're not coding in R and SQL and Python in your free time.
No more.
That's not really what her responsibilities are, but I think to be able to translate that is super critical. And we talked a little bit about thinking about where are there opportunities. So I'll just share a little bit about my background, and then we can go a little deeper. So I studied psychology. I went to Harvard undergrad, and then Harvard Business School. But my focus was all stats. That's how they teach it at Harvard. And so I ran experiments on who are the types of players who perform well in pressure situations. And that was just a general interest. I grew up outside of Chicago. I loved Michael Jordan. And I was always trying to think about how can you understand what's happening in the psyche. Then translate that to when I started working for the Crafts in 2002, it was all around trying to understand the customer and improving the fan experience. And what Maryann is speaking to is specifically what is the number one thing why people go to games for the product, and making sure that the product is great, and making sure that and the players are safe. On the contrary, the area that I really focus on in the work that we do, not only with the NFL, but with the Philadelphia 76ers, with the New Jersey Devils, with Mississippi State, among others, is how do you make a great experience for people coming to the game? How do you get them the right communication so that they know the amenities that are going to be happening if there's a halftime show, if they can watch a video online, if they can enter to win something, if they have a specific location that they always come into a venue, that there might be a certain new type of food that's being offered. So there's a lot of, or if you have what's happening with Lamar Jackson right now is incredible. He is on fire. And I have to imagine that they cannot keep his jerseys in stock, that the Ravens can't. And so if I'm the Ravens, how am I marketing and getting all of that inventory for the fans who want his jerseys? And so those are a lot of the things that we're helping organizations with, is their pricing, their inventory management, and other things like that. So,
You know the first thing they usually run out of when they have a hot quarterback are baby onesies. I'm not lying. I get the call. Yeah.
That's actually fascinating.
Yeah.
You know why that is, right? Because women are the primary shoppers
Yeah, we
of
see that
retail.
in our clusters, yeah.
Yeah, and also that men don't ever buy for women. That's another interesting factoid that we found.
True fact. You heard it here.
So we were kind of talking about what are the key areas within an organization where you have seen that data is driving value. You've talked about some on the product side. What are some other areas where you see the biggest impact?
So we make most of our money currently through linear broadcast television deals. And
so that's like Sportsnet, for people who don't know what linear is.
Linear broadcast, so we have deals with CBS, NBC, ESPN, Fox, Amazon Prime, and we've used data to underpin decisions on how we parse out those rights. The NFL is different from other leagues. So the NFL centrally does all of the media deals. So a football club's regional broadcast rights, as you would think of them in terms of the Ottawa Senators' regional broadcast rights up there, they belong to the league. They aren't part of the franchise value. So what that means is we use data, and we use viewership data to be able to flex games into national windows and flex games into other windows to really drive more viewers to football. At the same time, keeping that element of scarcity in our rights so that we can make sure that pricing integrity happens, particularly as we go into our next negotiations. So one of the things we've done, and it's really, really helped drive, we heard it in the last panel as well, our presence on digital streaming platforms. So I think about it in 3 buckets, and it can get kind of confusing. Linear broadcast, that's when you have your cable package, you flip on your TV, you get NBC or whatever. Then you've got TV everywhere, which is where you authenticate through that cable package, and you can watch it on any screen, typically, right? And then you have complete unbridled over the top. So the broadband, my hypothesis is, particularly in America, the broadband infrastructure is not good enough to give us the reach we need for an exclusive streaming partner. So what we've done is we've partnered with Amazon Prime. So Thursday Night Football, national broadcast, we tri-cast it with Fox, NFL Network, and Amazon Prime. And we get to see how audiences move around. We can see when people are watching it on a small device and they come home and they watch it on a big device. You know that people want to watch football on the biggest device that they have at their control, but now with digital TVs and everything else, it could be anything, and airplaying things to TVs. So that's the kind of thing we're doing on the viewership side. And between that, and you never know the cause and effect perfectly, but between what we're doing there and some of the other work we're doing on the product, look, our average AMA, average minute audience, is over 16 million, and that's up 5% year over year. So, when primetime television is dropping, and football is going the other way, that's defying gravity, and it's a fun place to be for now, but for me, I'm a bit of a pessimist from time to time. It's like, how long can you possibly do that? We have seen our digital interaction is still such a small part of our viewership, right? Only about 500,000 or 600,000 AMA across all of our digital platforms. So it's still coming, but when I started, it was only 100,000. So it's growing, and it's an important part of following your consumer around where they want to be.
Well, and I guess I would just add here, as someone who loves the data and wants more of it, I'm greedy for that information. Mm-hmm. I want to know what the customers are doing when they're watching it on their devices, because you can track that in ways that you couldn't before. Personally, I usually have a TV on, and I'm also watching it on an iPad or on my phone, because I want to be seeing multiple games that are going on, and I don't want to be switching back and forth. But now, these OTTs, they can track if someone pauses the game, what plays they rewind. There's going to be so much net new insights that are available to even for the media companies to figure out what they should be highlighting and replaying, and there's going to be a tremendous amount of growth in that area. And the other thing that I like to think about or talk about is the NFL and the teams, they're what we call the rights holders, right? They own the product, they own the content. Making sure that those organizations are still getting that data. We're in like a little bit of a a data war right now.
It's a big data war.
With who owns the information.
Yeah.
And there isn't a set standard today. So there's some organizations, I think like Ticketmaster is at the forefront of this, where they provide that data. But guess what? Their definition of the information they're willing to provide or of a season ticket member is not standardized across their business. So that's where organizations like Kager get to come in and help standardize things like that across the NFL. So I can talk about
No, I really think, look, on this streaming thing, when you're thinking about, rights contracts with digital streaming services, I do think we took the approach when we wanted to partner with Amazon a couple of years ago for the first time. Okay, you don't want to tell us anything. Okay, well, let's sort of go with it, because we don't really know how much people are really going to watch, because it's still behind a firewall. It's on Amazon Prime. So I think that as the relative importance of the content becomes to the platform, we can start to use that leverage a little bit to get to cooperate with them and understand. I think it's a different level of conversation. Here are the data we want, and here's how we want to use it. Here's what we don't want, or you can give it to us in sort of a blind matched kind of way. And I think it goes a long way. I will also say that we are starting to work with our sponsors. We have some really big deals, hundreds of millions of dollars of sponsorship deals with a lot of great American companies. And we are starting to do blind matches and things with our data, because it's just not, you can't continue to ask sponsors to pay up just to slap their logo on a field or a stadium or whatever. Like, you've got to do something to build their business with them. And if you aren't in a place to have your data infrastructure in shape to deal with these companies who will have their data infrastructure in shape, you're going to be left out a little bit. They're going to go elsewhere for that information. And we, on the fan stuff, we, look, it was nowhere 2 years ago. And we hired a great guy out of American Express. And it's the most difficult thing to do is the human resources aspect of this. Because if you're in an organization that really hasn't got it all together yet from data, you've got marketing people over here screwing around with their data. You've probably got some strategy guy doing his data. You've got a hockey guy with his data. It's everywhere, and no one wants to let go of their data. And the smartest thing we did at the NFL when we hired the data person, because it was like the second time we tried to hire somebody, and of course they ask a few questions like, so, where does that data sit and where does that data sit? And they know how difficult it's going to be to try and peel things out of other parts of the organization. So I said to Roger, we have to centralize this and we have to do it now, and I'm not taking no for an answer. Otherwise, I'm not interviewing another candidate, because it's an entire waste of time. So I was running marketing at the time, so that was easy. I could take that. The social media team, we took the data part of that. We took the data part from football operations, and we took the data part from broadcasting, and we built an infrastructure, and we marketed internally in the organization that this was going to be a service, and you have every right to be a really demanding customer. And if we aren't giving you what you want, you can yell at me. But we are never going to be able to have scale in the NFL, which is a big brand, big business, small company. There's only 1,500 of us. And so trying to build a data infrastructure and all of that in what is a small operation requires incredible discipline and centralization, and a real, you can't veer from centralization and excellence. Otherwise, it'll go off the rails so fast, and you will be mediocre, and you'll have crap data, and then no one will want to work with you. So little old NFL, but honestly, for the data, it's like a small organization. It's like 10 people, but we put it all together. We have it hosted at Amazon. We're working through it, and what that allows us to do is be there when Pepsi comes to us and Nike comes to us or Under Armour and says, let's go, we want to do work together. But it's really, really important, that structural HR side of getting your data house in order.
Well, and I'll just offer here, so that was actually work that we did at the Patriots in Kraft Sports and Entertainment over about 12, 13 years. And then based on the successes that we had, growing the business of retail and ticketing by 100%, by 45%, we decided we were getting so much interest in what we were doing and how we were doing it to spin out Kager. So that happened 4 years ago, and there's kind of two parts to what we do. One is we integrate all of the data from the various sources, the customer data, or and the business operations, so ticketing, actually the inventory and the retail side. And we actually, 3 years ago, before you were in your role, did a project with the NFL to help give them perspective of what all the data was that was out there. And then to actually move it forward is an incredible success for you, because that could have just sat as this great analysis that didn't do anything. And I think from the perspective, again, we work across all of the leagues to see what the NFL has done in the past, really 3 years, maybe 2 years, is they've just leapfrogged the rest of the leagues. So in addition to the work for centralizing the marketing components, and is the work that we've been doing with the club business group, which works across all of the teams. So this is pretty fascinating. It's an industry first. It's never happened, but across all the teams in the NFL, the ticketing information, their primary ticketing information, is aggregated. We house that and manage it and standardize it so that you know who a season ticket member is, you know what it's the same definition of when a ticket is sold, what a price over face means. Is it a single game price? Is it a season ticket member price? We have all of that data aggregated, and then we serve that back up to the teams in dashboards with analytics that are integrated into it and standardized. The league has several dashboards, so they have views across the entire NFL. And the impact has been profound. So first and foremost, when I was on the business side of a team, we would only know maybe one of every 3 or 4 people who was in a stadium. Now, part of this is because the league with Ticketmaster has pushed SafeTix, which is digital ticketing, but today they know twice as many people in venue as they did before. And then the other component is the number of net new names that the league has identified. So here's just a little interesting data fact for you guys. We did an on-sale pricing model for the NFL last year to help teams understand when they should go on sale with their tickets. And the primary kind of piece of information was, if you're not going on sale with your tickets, they're already up on the secondary. So you want to get those customers, you might as well go on sale and have them buying your tickets. This is a very rampant issue in the sports space today, which is that fans aren't going to the team to buy tickets, they're going to the secondary. Through some of the analysis that we did, we found somewhere between 3 and 5% of customers bought tickets on the secondary when a better ticket was available in the same location at a slightly lower price. And that's about the teams and the leagues needing to educate and market and make sure that they own the customer experience. And that's a huge evolution that Maryann is really helping to spearhead. Well, I mean, it is up into you for the league. And it's I think you look at those multiple efforts that they've taken, and you have the NHL, which is still trying to build up that functionality. The NBA doesn't have the shared ticketing perspective because it's not shared across the league. MLS has some because they're a single entity, but not as detailed and as specific. And Major League Baseball, they have done some stuff, but they really own all of the information themselves, and they have basically handcuffed the teams so that they can't do the marketing themselves. If you don't know this, all of the marketing for teams actually comes from Major League Baseball Central. That's harsh. I mean, that's hard from a communication and engaging the fans. So,
Yeah, I will say that the ticketing information is one huge vertical of information, right? But think about the consumer product and where you're buying from Fanatics or our online store. Think about playing Madden. Think about playing NFL fantasy. Think about viewing habits when you're tuning in through Nielsen. So what we've built now, sort of centered on this structure around ticketing, for a single customer file, for a row, I have all sorts of information on how they consume our sport. So now what we do, we say, all right, we have 10 clusters of customers, and cluster A looks like this. They're not very avid, they'll watch the Super Bowl kind of thing, and they may hang around a little bit for some games. All the way up to over here where you're playing daily fantasy, you're playing fantasy, soon I'll know if they're betting and things, so I know if they're betting and things like that, where you're a super avid customer and your lifetime value to me is huge. Then what we do, we say, okay, out of these clusters, job first, as anyone in marketing knows, it's easier to migrate a customer up your value chain than it is to get a new customer. We have 200 million fans. I'm thinking I got a lot to work with. So we're going to go to this bottom 25%. What do we need to serve up in a mass, intimate way? That's what we call it when we market this way, mass intimacy, so that that person feels like they're being spoken to as an individual about what we think they need to add to their NFL life. And we move people up the chain. And then you use it that way, but you also use it, okay, so for the fans that are in my database who are between the ages of 20 and 24, we also know that unless we get you before you're 18, it's highly unlikely you're ever going to become an avid fan. So this is like crisis time. It is a battleground for that young fan, for every single person in this room. So you have to know where they are, and what they want, and how they want it. And so we start to analyze that data. The people that we have, what do they look like? Why are they with us? And how do they consume our product? And we slice it by age and do another cluster analysis. And that's allowed us really to push an evolved social media strategy and social engagement strategy through the different platforms. When I got there, we weren't even posting video to social media. In fact, the league didn't really understand that we actually needed Facebook more than Facebook needed us. Like, it was a profound switch from a traditional licensing model, you want our content, you pay us money, to no, just let it go. We used to limit teams. You can only post 2 highlights in any given game. Like, it was very, very control. And somehow I convinced them, like, just make it popular, make it fun and make it popular. Like, player generated content. And we put local correspondents in every single stadium to get cheap and cheerful content that was everywhere. We caught some really special moments that spoke to this younger generation of fans who we knew from our cluster analysis. They want to know more than about what this guy does on the field. They want to know, they lean into music, they lean into fashion, they lean into fitness, into cooking. We got to take the helmets off these guys. We got to tell them what they do in their communities and, you know, what they're doing for fun. And I think if you saw the lead up to our Super Bowl halftime show commercial last year, when all the guys were at that party in Texas, we seeded that for months before with pictures of these guys in tuxes. We didn't dress them. We said, black tie, whatever you want, be interesting. You know, Marshawn Lynch shows up in a black track pants and a black hoodie. Well, okay, we're shooting you like that then. You know, and it was individual and respectful of what those guys wanted. And it is really, really, I mean, it's like a hockey stick now, our young fandom. I mean, it was like doing this, and in the last 18 months, we're starting to see it pick up across all of our platforms. But we are giving them content that, you know, there's a lot of people roll their eyes about it. Like, we've got 1.5 million followers on TikTok, and it's growing like crazy, and it's fun content to watch.
I think that, I mean, we're going to take questions in a minute, but I think the other component here is we're talking about like the fun and engaging stuff, but there's so much that's happening behind the scenes from the technology perspective. And I'm just going to give this one example because it's about sales. And a lot of you folks who are in the room and looking to get into sports business, a very common entry point is ticket sales. I hope that you have analytic skills, but if you don't, there's lots of needs. But here's just a quick example. One of our clients is the Philadelphia 76ers. Well, we'll say the New Jersey Devils because the Sixers are sold out now. But they had a process of collecting customer names in venue. They would get thousands of them. And because of some of the challenges they had with the data and analytics provider they had before us, they wouldn't get it to their sales reps to make calls until 3 days after the game. I think we all know the importance of recency and frequency in terms of making a sale. So we worked with them and we got that down to 4 hours. So 4 hours after the game, the sales reps have the information loaded into their, calling campaign, which is, again, a very significant part of the sports industry, is calling people to sell tickets. And this is important because we also removed people who were season ticket members who had already been called before. That's just like standard cleaning data and giving you the information that you need and background that you need. And there's amazing things that you can do at a macro level once you have that underlying data correct. But like we're like at baby steps still, just to kind of bring it all together there.
Sure. Do you want to take some questions?
Questions.
Hi, my name is Michael Williams. I'm from the University of New Brunswick. I'm a law student. Personally, I'm a diehard Patriots fan.
Oh,
and I've
great.
been trying to go to a game the last 2 seasons. So I know ticket sales 2 years ago had a single day release on July 23rd, 2018. I had 6 screens, couldn't get a ticket. But this year, they didn't have that single game release date. So just wondering what the data told Kraft and Sports Entertainment not to do that, and what was the reasoning behind it.
Well, I did see that Jeff had his rings. I didn't bring the ones that I have, so I apologize for that. I was a little scared what might happen in customs. So, to be honest, I didn't know that. I'm pretty sure that we always have a day because it's something that the Krafts firmly believe in. There's always some tickets that are held. I will say that this home game stand this year is just plain incredible. The Chiefs, the Cowboys, the season opener with the banner raising, so it was very in demand. Fortunately, last year, for the first time, with working with the NFL and with Ticketmaster, the Patriots had not officially allowed their tickets to be sold on the secondary, and they were. Last year and this past year. So Ticketmaster is the official partner, so there probably are opportunities. I happen to know that the average price is significantly higher than the season ticket member price. My only other recommendation for you would be to join the wait list, because they do make tickets available after the fact, and there should be, towards the end of the season, maybe not the games you want to see, tickets that will become available.
Yeah, it's
Sorry,
cold.
It wasn't as much as trying to get me tickets.
Oh.
As much
I'm
as
just
it
trying
was.
to help
Yeah,
you.
no, thank you very
Come
much.
to a game.
I was just trying to connect it back to the data and analytics, just wondering how selling on that single day versus going through the secondary websites, what kind of advantages there would be for a club in that basis.
To be totally fair, there's no advantage for the Patriots to do it. They do it as to enable some tickets to be sold for non-season ticket members to get access at the normal price.
The rack rate price.
At the rack rate, but they don't have to do it. The tickets are incredibly high demand. It's the highest price over secondary in the league. So it's more like they're kind of doing a service in many ways. So I think it's a great thing, but I'm pretty sure they went on sale this year. So
Thank you very much.
Hi, my name's Colin Bonus. I work with the Kingston Frontenacs in the OHL. My question is kind of about data capture strategy. So you talked a little bit about data cleaning, making sure that we have high impact to give to our teams and actually drive their decision making and their actions. But what would you, or any advice you would have for having more data capture touch points at live events, or just with your market in general?
So I'll take this, you can jump in if you want. There's a bunch of different ways to do it, with social media in particular, and because so many fans, roughly half of them or so, are usually on their phones depending on the Wi-Fi capabilities you have in your venues. Doing like a social media, meet me here, and provide your email is an awesome way to get a bunch of names, and they can do maybe skate between one of the breaks or ride on the Zamboni or something like that. Those tend to be very, very effective. Having VIP experiences heading into a game where people will kind of sign up. Usually sweepstakes are very effective. And then just generally, sounds like a little simplistic, but having an opportunity for people to sign up in venue for membership programs or loyalty programs. I think people don't understand the simplicity and importance of just being seen and hitting people through as many channels as possible. Generally, they say to actually take an action, people need to see something at least 3 or 4 times. So you want to hit them digitally, in person, and then with a follow-up, and then hopefully they take an action, because we are all so busy. We are all on so many different mediums all of the time, and it's just, do you catch them when they have a moment, when they're not driving and texting, and that they can actually engage with you. Not that I do that.
Would you say, though, once you get them, in order to have an app environment,
Yes.
is really, so drive them and get them on, and then developing a really simple to use app that's going to give them features and benefits when they're at your games, when they're sitting at home, whatever it is, they want to follow a player, they want to do this. That way you can follow them around the ecosystem, right? If you get them once and you get an email, well, you can direct market to them, but you don't know what they're doing when they're not when they're not doing your thing, you don't know what, they receive your thing, you'll get a 3% sort of return rate on that. But if you can build an app environment where they live to consume all things Kingston Frontenac's, where player highlights are, where player blogs are, player social, you highlight social media posts from the players, you just sort of make it a one-stop shop for fun stuff about the Frontenacs, then you can really start to understand how people are consuming your product.
And I'll just add, a lot of what we do is where people come in through which channel and what are the actions they take. So if they engage on the first or the second or the third, what are they most likely to engage in next? So if they come in through a sweepstakes, what's the easiest way to get them to maybe purchase something, anything? Because buying something is an investment. That is an action that people are taking. They have teeth in the game. So whether it's a piece of retail, whether it's a ticket, maybe it's some fundraising, I don't know. But having those plans and testing on a regular basis is super important, and see what works.
Have a conversation with your fan through an app. I don't understand why it's freaking 2019. I should be able to go to a game and say, you know what, I think between the first and second quarter, I want 4 burgers and 4 beers ordered to my 4 seats because I'm there with my family. Well, 2 things happen then. I'm improving service at the concession because I'm not standing in line, because someone's pre-prepping my food when it's quiet and they're going to bring it to me. Maybe I want a jersey. All these things can be, marketed to the element of one, and you stop the waiting in line when the parents are going to say, forget it, man, I'm not standing in line. You leave money on the table there. You decrease the consumer experience. It's all about, selling more and being more efficient along the way. Just imagine how great that experience would be, right? I mean, there's lots of really interesting things you can do, and if you do it all through an app environment, it's just not that expensive to develop and maintain an app anymore.